Visions pour in. No mercy from my mind tonight. I stand in a glade and imagine it drowning in sights unreal. Grass melts, rocks swirl into twisted faces, leaves turn to liquid and drip down branches, bleeding into pools. The moon is a closed eye. Brush in my hand, my ethereal palette emerges. Memories resurface. I repaint, relive. A man burned before me in his own armory. Around us sweltered a painted fire with flames the color of daybreak. Its golden core beat with pain, with every wound his weapons had ever inflicted. The blaze climbed the walls but did not catch, shedding neither ash nor smoke and spreading only as far as I willed it. Yet it flared more vibrantly, more violently than any real fire. The man writhed, his senses scorched deeper than bone. He reached towards a weapon rack lined with serrated carvers, Noxian steel with Kashuri handiwork. Kashuri, the thought arises, still far, each step further from Koyan. These blades were used to maim and kill. He caused suffering. He deserved to suffer. Rendering the flames of a forge, I drew answers out of him. Who he worked with, for how long, why. His fury strained through every gasp. My painting thrashed in his eyes, mirroring every drop of wrath. To make it stop, he offered everything. Money, arms, revenge, by his hand. But the only thing I cared about was this moment between us. Every vision that burdened me became his burden. The fire surged from my imagination into his, lightening the weight of my mind. I kept my art from destroying him. We both now live the marks of this. But while he chokes within flashbacks of the inferno, I survive in it. The tides pull me away. I repaint, relive. A woman ferried me across troubled waters. Around us, a golden drawn breeze, dappled lights with specks of lantern bugs. We sat across from each other. Gulfweed clambered from the surf and gripped the oars. Water lilies grew from the wellspring of my mind. An offering, I shaped them. The gulfweed took the painted blossoms instead, prying them apart. The woman's hands found rhythm. The course was not always like this, she said. She had been forced to carry marauders, arm runners, assassins, all with dark intent that seeped into the channel, which grew sick with chop and murk. In her voice, a deep stained guilt. I listened. I gathered color from my palette and matched the sweeps of her oars, creating lilies and life anew, carps in the plums and oranges of sunset. I inspired her to recall kind memories from beneath layers of pain. Everything that burdened her became my burden. The canal turned from lashing the pieces within itself to cradling them. The lines of the woman's eyes furled with gentle joy. Somewhere in our minds, birds sang. Our steadied thoughts, steadied hands brought us to safer shores. There's light to what lives in my mind, and I can choose to paint that way. But light always casts a shadow. I repaint, relive. An artist stood beside me in a Koyan studio. Around us, inky blackness broken by candlelight. Far below an open window, the ocean. A violent gorge with sea foam for teeth, consuming itself over and over. The Temple of Koyan stood for what would become its last night. All things must end, said Jin. He watched a candle burning. I looked to the tide. I hope you enjoyed your time here, I said. He was still as death. What does a wave feel for the rock upon which it crashes? Everything, I thought. Nature is emotional and harmonious. Nothing, I said, shrugging. You feel more for Koyan than that, surely. This place showed me all I desired to see, Jin said, except one final piece. He turned toward me, and I him, which is your painting. Boy, the truth of it. I know forced performances, and you've always hidden something. I'd like to know what. My eyes widened. What color they were then, I couldn't tell. What Jin found churning within, I dreaded. What do you mean? I said. I'm true to myself. An eye opens on my canvas, searching for anything from Jin. Some envy, resentment, passion, sorrow, any feeling to explain him. When we meet again, I'll greet him like before, eat together, watch as he shifts in a new light, ask, why Koyan? Why me? And I'll paint what I know of him, returning life to his murders, putting colors back on agonized faces, surrounding us with a darkness so bright it becomes blinding. It's so blinding it becomes freeing. Art saves me, yet it can shatter me. Sometimes I think I'm already lost. No, Jin said. You are not. I remember how he convinced me to reveal my art, but I still paint arms to hold my past self back. Eyes to glower, mouths to scream. At the same time, the arms push, the eyes behold, the mouths good. In past and present, I lift the brush. I finish tonight's paintings. Around me, black and gold, fractures of earth, light emitting from the chasms, songbirds in glit cages, the infinity of an eye straining with full veins. The moon witnesses, blot everything beneath it. Koyan, Jin, and I'm still left with myself. The vision erupts. In its place, the forest is just the forest, holding itself together. Tears draw down my face. My palate dissipates. Awake, I dream of my next piece. If there was one thing Marcin knew how to do, it was to keep his head down. Before him, rowdy voices intermingled with the clatter of tankards and the sloshing of beer. Every once in a while, someone barked a drink order, and just as soon as their coin landed on the bar, a drink slid in front of their waiting hands. His quick and silent service kept him unnoticed, and as such, uninvolved in any trouble. And there was always trouble. It took on many forms: a belligerent brawler, itching for a fight, a transaction among cloaked figures that ended with a dagger through a throat, or, perhaps most unexpectedly, a little girl pushing through the heavy tavern door. Marcin watched the girl hum and skip her way toward the bar. Behind her, the door slammed shut. One last swirl of winter air blasting across the room. A loud bang grabbing the last few eyes that weren't already following her, baffled by her presence. The girl clambered up a stool, barely peeking over the edge of the bar. Marcin took in child's bright red hair and tattered toy clutched in her grip, the frayed satchel on her back, and the ragged, unreasonably short-sleeved dress. "What can I get for you?" he asked. The girl stood on the stool and plopped her toy on the counter, peering at the many bottles on shelves. Marcin could see it was a stuffed bear, once well crafted, since well loved. The stitching at its limbs were visible after many years of stress. Somewhere in its life, it had lost one of its button eyes. "Can I get a glass of milk, please?" Marcin raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He walked toward the far end of the bar to fetch the ceramic jug. "Awfully late for you to be out by yourself, ain't it?" a deep voice rumbled. Marcin sighed. Trouble always attracted more trouble. He pulled the jug down from the shelf and gazed back down at the bar. A large man next to the girl had turned to peer down at her with one good eye. Seated in front of him, the girl looked like a pebble at the foot of a mountain. He was a pile of muscles crisscrossed with scars, the loops of ropes, chains, and hooks at his belt, along with the massive blade slung across his back, loudly announced him as a bounty hunter. The girl looked up at him and flashed a smile. "I'm not alone. Tibbers is here with me. Aren't you, Tibbers?" He held up the bear, beaming. The bounty hunter laughed out loud. "Surely your parents must be missing you." The girl's hands dropped to her side as her eyes drifted down and away. "I don't think so," she replied. "Ah, but I do think so. Would pay a pretty penny to see you home safe, I imagine." Marcin could practically hear the coins clinking in the bounty hunter's mind, the man already tallying up the prize for her safe return. "They can't. They're dead." The girl plopped back down on the stool, staring into the button eye of her bear. The bounty hunter started to speak again just as Marcin placed the mug down on the counter with a percussive thud. "Your milk," he said. The girl turned and beamed at him, breaking from her sullen mood. "Thank you, sir." She set her bear on the table and reached back into her knapsack. Marcin waited, prepared to accept any coin she put down as payment enough. He did not expect the massive purse that landed with a clatter. A few golden coins bounced onto the counter, one rolling toward the edge. Marcin stopped it on reflex, one finger pinning the escapee. Slowly, he lifted it from the bar, its heft and texture proclaiming it as authentic Noxian mint. "Oopsie," the little girl giggled. Marcin swallowed, his mouth suddenly dry. He reached over, hoping to shove the coin and the purse back into the girl's satchel before anyone else noticed. "That's a mighty big purse for a mighty small girl," the bounty hunter growled, far too loudly. "Tibbers found it," the girl replied. The bounty hunter snorted. "Is that so?" "It was on the man who stopped me in the road. He was a real meanie." The girl took a sip of her milk, her attention back on her bear. "Well, that's too bad." The bounty hunter leaned in closer on his stool, hand sliding towards the purse. The girl looked up at him, a playful smile dancing across her face. "Tibbers ate him." For a moment, everything stood still. Then the bounty hunter's laugh cut across the room. "I'm sure he did," he roared. He thrust a meaty hand forward, grasping the toy by the head and yanking it away from the girl. "This big ol' scary monster." "Let Tibbers go," the girl cried out, reaching up for the bear. He doesn't like being pulled. The bounty hunter just laughed harder. Marcin pocketed the coin in his hand and turned away, walking unnoticed towards the back. He wished he could help, but he hadn't survived this long by sticking around longer than he should. Her voice stopped him cold. I said, let Tibbers go. The words rumbled with gravel and rage, cutting through the din. Against all his better judgment, Marcin paused and looked back. The girl stood on the bar, staring at the bounty hunter, fury smoldering in her eyes. Then chaos erupted. A flare of light and a burst of heat erupted from the girl. Too late, Marcin threw his arms up, crying out in pain. He stumbled back, knocking into the shelves behind him. Several bottles crashed around him as he ducked beneath the bar, cursing his idiotic hesitation. The screams of men and the sound of breaking wood punctuated a growing roar of flame. A guttural, impossible sound reverberated through the air, rattling his bones. Marcin crawled, still half blinded, toward where he hoped the doors to the kitchen were. Around him the screams heightened, then stopped with a stomach-turning crack. For the second time that day, Marcin forgot all his honed skills of avoiding trouble and peered over the edge of the bar. A hulking beast loomed, silhouetted against the firelight. Thick strands of sinew bound its limbs to its torso like stitching. With a start, Marcin realized the beast itself burned, unharmed by the hungry tongues of flame that danced across its fur. In its claws, it held aloft. By the head, the slumped, bloody form of the bounty hunter, a limp ragdoll in the massive paws of the monster. Before it, the little girl stood, wreathed in fire. You're right, Tibbers, she said. He didn't like being pulled either. Marcin looked around the room in horror. Throughout his tavern, overturned chairs and tables ignited, raising a thick, black smoke. The smell of blood and burning flesh crawled inside his nose, and Marcin choked back a cough, his stomach turning. The beast turned and looked at him. A whimper escaped Marcin's lips. He gazed into the glowing abyss of the bear's eyes and swallowed in the certainty of his end. A peal of laughter rang out over the crackle of flames. Don't worry, the little girl said, peering around the monstrosity. Tibbers likes you. Marcin watched, frozen, as the girl hopped, skipped, and jumped her way through the burning tavern, the beast lumbering behind her. He stared as it smashed the heavy door off its hinges. He gasped as the little girl turned back one last time, a sweet smile back on her face. Thanks for the milk, sir. And then the girl walked out into the snowy night as the tavern collapsed behind her. They think Zon is where the losers live. They won't admit it, of course. They'll smile through their teeth and pat us on the back and tell us that Piltover would be nowhere without Zon. Our hard workers, our bustling trade, our chemtech that everyone in Piltover pretends they don't buy, except they constantly do. Zon is a vital part of Piltover's culture, they'll say. All lies, obviously. They think Zon is where the idiots go. People too stupid to make it in Piltover's golden towers. People like me. I spent months stealing Shimmer so I could afford to apply for Clan Holleran's apprenticeship. I studied every crusty, dog-eared book I could find on gearwork machinery. I built a prototype gear brace for people with broken wrists that increased their mobility. I did everything I could have done to earn an apprenticeship in Piltover. I even made it to the final stage of the vetting process, a face-to-face meeting with Boswell Halloran himself. They said it was formality, just a way to welcome me to the family. He entered the room, looked down at my gray-stained clothes, and laughed, a strangled, joyless laugh. He said, "Sorry, my boy, we don't take sump rats here." He never even sat down. So now I'm back here in Zon. One more idiot. The gray rolls through the streets, welcoming me back. Most days it's thin enough that you can breathe deep without coughing up something wet. Today, though, is what we call a gray out. You choke with every breath. Your chest feels tight. Can't see much past your fingertips. I want to run, but I know there's nowhere to run to. The gray feels like it's closing in on me, crushing me, smothering me. These are the times I pray to Jana. Not everyone in Zon believes she's real, but my mother always had faith. She told me a bluebird hovered outside her window on the day of my birth, and she knew. She knew. It was Jana telling her I was going to be fine. She was wrong, of course. I wasn't fine in the end. A couple of years ago, my mother, died while sump scrapping, and I had to raise myself with the few gears she left me. Then, the usual. Couldn't make friends. Got beaten up a lot. Boy, I didn't love me back. Tried to study. Tried to think my way up to Piltover. Couldn't. Figured Jana had forgotten about me. But I still keep the pendant my mother gave me. A wooden engraving depicting the bluebird she saw, just in case of moments like these. So I sit on the wet ground because I don't care enough to find a bench, and I take out the bluebird pendant I always keep tucked in my shirt, and I talk to Jana. Not out loud, of course. Don't need people thinking I'm some chem-burnt freak. But still, I talk to her. I don't ask her for anything. I just tell her about my day and the day before that, and how scared I am that I'll never become anything worthwhile and that I'll die down here knee deep in the sump with nothing to show for it, just like my mother, and that sometimes I just want to run away somewhere I can breathe and stop being so frightened and not feel like crying all the time, and how I hate myself for feeling like I want to cry because I have it so much easier than some other people, and how sometimes I think about throwing myself into the chem pools of the sump, just throwing myself in with my mother where I'd let myself sink to the bottom and my lungs would fill with fluid because then it'd be over, at least. I tell Jana, I hope she's okay. I hope she's happy, wherever she is. That's when I feel the breeze caress my cheek. Just a light flutter, but it's there. Soon, I can feel it blow my hair across my face. The wind whistles loud and fast, and soon it's whipping my coat in the air, and I feel as though I'm at the center of a maelstrom. The gray swirls before me, pushed up by a breeze that seems to flow from everywhere at once. The fog slowly dissipates, and I can see other passerbys on the entresol level watching it float away. The wind stops. The gray clears. I can breathe. Not just small, cautious gasps, but deep breaths that fill my lungs with cold, fresh air. No longer veiled and gray, the sun shines past the towers of Piltover into Zon itself, I can see the Piltovans above, peering down at us. Without the gray clouding their view, they can see us from their lofty bridges and balconies. I don't think they like it very much. Nobody wants to be reminded they live above a slum. I see a few scowls. And that's when I see him again, Oswald Halloran, holding a sweet cake in his hand, looking down at me again, an expression of disgust on his face, just like before. I'm so busy staring at his contemptuous face that I don't notice the presence behind me until her hand is on my shoulder. "It's okay," she says, and I know without turning who it is. She squeezes my shoulder, then kneels and crosses her arm in front of my chest, pulling me into a hug. "It's going to be okay," she says. Strands of her hair fall onto my shoulders. She smells like the air after a long rain. "It might not be okay now. You might not be okay for a while, and that's fine. But someday, without knowing exactly when or why it happened, you'll feel happy," she says. My face is warm and wet, and I don't know when I started crying, but it's a relief. Like the clouds are clearing, and I hold her arms, and she holds me, just telling me over and over that it's okay, that she's here, that things will be better. I don't know how long she holds me, but soon I see everyone on Zahn's entresol and the balconies of Piltover above us staring. Before I can say anything, she says, "Don't think about them. Just take care of yourself. Will you do that for me?" I try to speak, but instead I just nod. "Thank you," she says, and she kisses my wet cheek and gives me one last quick squeeze. She rises and glides past me. For the first time, I see her entirety, a tall, ethereal figure that I would have assumed was from my imagination if she hadn't just touched me. I noticed her long, pointed ears, feet that don't touch the ground, hair flowing in the wind, even right now, when there isn't any. Eyes so blue, I feel a little cold, just looking at her. But then she smiles, winks, and says, "You'll want to watch this next part." There's a massive gust of wind, so fast and sharp, I have to cover my eyes. When I open them again, she's gone, but the wind is still blowing. It blows up towards Piltover and its gawking citizens. It whistles as it picks up speed and strength, and the Pilchies run for cover, but it's too late. The breeze hits them full force, sending their frocks sailing and mussing their hair. Oswald Halloran shrieks in terror as the wind launches him from the balcony. It seems as if he's about to plummet towards certain death, but another gust of wind shoots up towards him, and his descent slows significantly, as if the wind is guiding him down. You wouldn't know it to look at him, though, even though he's falling with all the velocity of a tumbling leaf. He screams the entire way down, very high-pitched, very undignified. His clothes flap upward, smacking him in the face as he descends, until he's hovering a few inches above a puddle. He begins before the wind disappears altogether, and he plops ass first into the puddle, ruining what I assume was a very expensive ensemble. He yelps in a mixture of surprise, pain, and irritation, flashing around like an angry child. He tries to get his feet, only to slip and fall back down all over again. If I'm being completely honest, he looks like an idiot, and I can't stop laughing. Let me tell you about my glade. On a clear night, like this night, in fact, when the moon is full and ripe, silver light glitters on star-shaped leaves with hair-fine fronds like threads of silk, and night-blooming selenia render my glade a magical wonderland. A traveler might catch a scent of a far-distant continent on the wind. Only hints, to be sure, but such hints. A bouquet of desert spices, sun-baked stone, and salt from the crests of racing waves, mingled with the evergreen sap scent of highland firs. You might think such a turn of phrase overly whimsical, words that might tumble from the lips of a hopeless romantic or a lovelorn poet. You'd be right, of course, but that doesn't make them any less true. And while we're on the subject of romantics, an artistic soul might, if they came here at just the right time, see dancing patterns in the moon glow dappling through the forest canopy. Their eye might follow it around, gradually sensing an order to the play of light and shadow across the bark of a tree or in the ripples upon a pool of water. A pattern that almost looks like it might just form a doorway of sorts, if only it would complete. But no matter how those patterns swirl and dance, they never fully lace into a whole. Almost never, that is. After all, the magic of these lands is skittish, with good reason, and doesn't reveal its secrets to just anyone. We nature spirits are drawn to places like this. They nurture us as we in turn nurture them. You can find us all over the world, in some places more than others, yes. But there's magic bubbling up. Like as not, you'll find a spirit like me. I flatter myself that the glade I inhabit is more infused with it than most other places in this land that mortals call Noxus. If you know the right way to look, most of this world's inhabitants have forgotten how to see, how to really see. But there are others, a whole race of them, in fact, who never forgot. They're called Yordles. And they're not exactly from this world. I'm friends with a lot of them. Two of them are approaching now. It sounds like they're trying to get back to their kin. They're having trouble with the, for want of a better word, key that's supposed to help them find their way home. You see, the low roads they travel don't run on the surface of this world, nor do they travel straight, like those of the men who call the lands hereabouts home. They curve and loop, swirling all around the place like crazy. Like a crazy knot that you can't untie. Most Yordles know how to travel them relatively easy, but these two, let's just say they're not the best suited traveling companions. I can hear them just beyond the Spirit Veil, bickering like a pair of hungry foxes. They'll be here soon, but I wonder if they know they're not the only ones approaching. Mortals are coming this way. Warriors, armored in steel and stone, bearing instruments of death. I don't like them, but don't misunderstand my reasons. I understand death is necessary, a vital part of the natural cycle of being, but these people only take and don't give back. They pave over the land with roads that do not curve. They use their axes and saws to clear the land of growing things. They are an empire of angles and order. Nearby trees bend away from them in response. They don't notice, of course. Mortals almost always miss their impact on the world around them. A woman with long brown hair is the first to enter my wooded glade. She taps bird heels to her horse's flanks and rides in a circle, scanning the tree line and ground for signs of life that might mean her harm. Her eyes are cold, and she surveys the beauty of the trees like a woodsman sharpening an axe. She halts her mount in the middle of the glade and sits in silence. She hears birdsong, the sighing of the forest, and the burbling stream flowing over time-smoothed rocks. Most people who come here are calmed by these sounds, their souls replenished simply by being in nature. But not her. None of the forest energy touches her, and I don't know whether to feel sad or angry. The woman is patient, and only after several minutes passed does she lift her arm and spread her fingers wide. Moments later, a dozen riders appear at the edge of the glade. Their horses are exhausted, flanks lathered white, and heads bowed. These animals have carried their riders a great distance, so I extend a little magic into their tired limbs. They whinny and toss their manes in gratitude. A mustached man clad in leather and furs rides towards the woman. A bronze circlet holds her long dark hair from his face, and his tunic has been cut to show off his muscular build. A wolf pelt cloak mantles his shoulders, and a pair of circle grip axes are slung at his back. Like the woman, his gaze makes me fear what he might do to the trees. Yes, I think I dislike him even more than the woman. "What took you so long, Tamara?" he says, afraid we'll be ambushed. She ignores his questions. "We should make camp here, Draven. Fresh water and plentiful wood. It's broad and wide, too, so there's limited avenues of approach." Spoken like a true Noxian war mason. You say that like it's a bad thing. She slides from her saddle, and as soon as her boots hit the ground, I recoil from the stone in her veins, the iron in her soul. The sounds in the glade dim, but none of the humans notice. "I want to reach the capital before we die of old age," says Draven. "The fighting in Basilich was fun, but I need to get back to the arena and put these axes to good use." "You also want to go back and tell Darius you'd rather his army advance without a war mason carefully scouting the way?" "We're in no danger," says Draven. "Not in the Empire's heartland." She folds her arms. "You heard what happened to Wintry outside Drekken?" "No," shrugs Draven. "But you're going to tell me, aren't you?" She looks at him, then sighs and shakes her head. "What would be the point? It's not about you, so you're not going to care." I listen to them trade insults back and forth, but am confused at how the words they say don't match the shimmering colors of their auras. It's a source of great confusion to me that mortals spend so much time saying things they do not mean and feeling things they do not express. It's an honesty to nature, albeit a bloody one, you can count on. It's nightfall when the Yorls get here. I feel the irresistible call of their key and push a little of my power into the spirit realm to open the way. One of the silverbark trees shifts her branches windward slightly, and the last ray of sunset complete a glowing amber pattern on the gnarled knots of her mossy trunk. Shadow, light, and ridged bark combine to form an endless loop that from a certain angle and a certain height looks like a portal into a land of eternal sunrise. Whispers and song echo from the arbor in the heart of the tree. The Noxians are busy with their horses, and the animals make enough noise that the humans don't hear it. It sounds like the winds are speaking, passing secrets between the trees. Maybe they are. You can never really know what the winds are saying. Well, maybe the bluebird of the seas knows. She doesn't roam far from the sunken city these days. The grass around the base of the silver bark ripples in a warm breeze that carries a multitude of stories from another realm. I've heard hundreds of them. But the Yordles have an inexhaustible supply, and I never tire of learning of their travels. There's a soft pop of air, like a bubble bursting on the surface of a lake, and two diminutive forms tumble out of the tree. They roll into the high grass, looking surprised to find themselves in a forest glade. One of them immediately picks herself up and brings her big cannon to bear. She spins around, left, then right. She draws a bead on a rabbit with a half-chewed ear poking a twitching nose from its burrow. "Did you do this?" she asks. The rabbit doesn't answer, but then rabbits are stoic. Want a secret kept, but have to tell someone? Tell a rabbit. They'll take it to their grave. I know this Yordle. She's called Tristana, and she looks mad, like she's ready to march off to fight, but forgot which way the war was. Her purple skin is flushed a deeper shade than normal, and her white hair is swept back in a tight ponytail. She hefts her cannon and aims it towards the rabbit. It hops forward, unfazed by the threat. "I won't ask again," says Tristana, and Boomer never misses. The rabbit twitches its nose, cool as winter frost. Tristana's traveling companion sits up, a tiny winged fairy circling her head. Lulu and Pix. Her wild purple hair billows in a wind that only seems to affect her, and her tall hat sits at a funny angle. It's slipped over her eyes, and she taps around with her curling stick. "I've gone blind," she says. "That's new." Stana keeps her gaze locked on the rabbit and holds up a hand to silence Lulu, but her friend doesn't see it. Lulu gets up and walks in a circle, tapping the ground in front of her. The flowers duck, and the buzzing glitter bugs scatter before Pix can pluck their wings. Lulu's fairy companion is cute, but he's got a strange sense of humor. I can't ever tell if he's really funny or rude. Maybe it's both. "Tristana, are you there?" says Lulu. Tristana sighs in exasperation. She taps 2 fingers to her eyes, then points them at the rabbit with a stern look. "I'm watching you, Flopsy," she warns. Her jaw drops as she finally notices the humans in the glade. She darts over to Lulu and pushes her back against the tree. The portal they fell from is already fading as the light changes. "Humans," she hisses. "Where?" says Lulu. "It's all dark, but then sometimes I see you more with my eyes closed." Tristana sighs and pulls the brim of Lulu's hat up. Lulu blinks and hugs Tristana. "It's a miracle." "Quiet," hisses Tristana, and Pix darts down to zap a tiny spike of violet light at her cheek. Anna bats the fairy away with a grimace. They bend the shadows around the trees a little. Humans sometimes have a hard time seeing Yordles, at least as they really are. But I think the woman with the cold eyes might be sharper than most, and I don't want to see those two get hurt. Stana glances around the tree. The Noxians are making camp, but I'm relieved to see they're not lighting a fire. Draven is grumbling about that, but Tamara is adamant that they not broadcast their presence. I make sure all the wood in this glade is green and not good for fires. Doesn't stop anyone who comes this way from trying their luck with an axe or saw, but most of them. Tristana nods to herself. "They haven't seen us," she whispers. "Good." "They look friendly," says Lulu, peeking over Tristana's shoulder. "I think we should say hello." "They're Noxians," replies Tristana, and I feel her exasperation. You don't talk to Noxians unless you want to lose your head. Why? Do they like collecting heads? Tristana rolls her eyes, finally taking the time to examine her surroundings. I lift up some flowers to her. You can't help but feel the magic in the glade and the waves back. Some people say Tristana's all business and so very serious, but I know better. She looks up at the tree and gives it an experimental rap with her knuckles. She taps gently around the bark before finally hearing a booming echo from deep inside the tree. Some of the Noxians look up, and she winces. I creak some branches and persuade the water to splash playfully over the rock. The Noxians return to their work. Tristana nods and says, "Thanks," before turning back to Lulu and asking, "Right, where's the whispering key?" The what now? The thing we've been using to travel through all the portals. Remind me, what did it look like? It looked like a little compass made of carved stone. Oh, you mean my doodad? Your, begins Tristana, before settling on, yes, that's what I mean. Lulu does a pirouette and pats herself down, checking pockets that seem to appear and disappear at random. Closes one eye and bites her lip, pulling out coins, dice, chips of precious stones, and glittering fluff, but nothing resembling a key. I just had it. Yes, you did, agrees Tristana through gritted teeth. You used it to open the portal on the beach while we were running away from that pack of cragwolves after we dropped it on Poppy. I like Poppy. She's so serious, says Lulu, stomping around as if she's marching on a parade ground. She pauses to stare at Tristana. Wait, are you and her actually the same doll? No, of course we're not, sighs Tristana. Now, will you hurry up, please? You know, same hair, that little furrow just above your nose when you get mad. See? There it is. Getting angry with Lulu won't do any good. It would be like chasing a cub that's stolen your shoe. It's all part of a fun game. And a cooling breeze to ruffle Tristana's white hair, but it doesn't seem to help. Whispering, your doodad. Can you just get it for me? Oh, right, yes. I was looking for that, wasn't I? Yes, you were. Lulu sighs, making a theatrical show of befuddlement. She looks up at the darkening sky and snaps her finger. No wonder I can't find it, she says. You're dark. She lifts her crooked staff, and Tristana's eyes widen as she realizes what Lulu's about to do. But it's too late to stop her. A stream of glitter bursts from the end of Lulu's staff and explodes like a swarm of dancing fireflies overhead. The glade is bathed in the glow of 1,000 stars, a secret gathering of... Aha, says Lulu, finally pulling out something from a fold in her tunic. It looks like a cross between a budding sea pod and a curling seashell. A rainbow of colorful lines swirls on its surface, and what looks like tiny tadpoles swim inside it. Here it is. Tristana looks horrified at the light from Lulu's staff floods the glaive, but before she can react, a spinning axe blade flashes between the two of them and buries itself in the bark of the tree. Lulu almost jumps out of her skin, and the sea pod's seashell flies from her hand. Silverbark cries out in pain, so I pour magic up through her roots into the heartwood. Vivid amber sap oozes from the gouge in the wounded tree spark, pinning the axe in place. Lulu's doodad sails through the air to land somewhere in the middle of the glade with the tall grass, and it feels its primal energies pulse outward in a rippling wave. Oops, says Lulu. A veritable flurry of black shafted arrows slices through the undergrowth as the Noxians respond the only way they know how. Get back, shouts Tristana, swinging Boomer around and dragging Lulu away to find cover behind a moldy log cover. An arrow punches into the rotten wood. Another splits the night a hair's breadth away from Tristana's ear. Lulu squeals and picks darts to Tristana's side. Fresh wildflowers of blue, gold, and crimson instantly bloom on the dead wood. Tristana fires Boomer. Flame, flame, flame. Everyone ducks. Noxians, rabbits, and glitterbugs. Even the worms burrow deeper. Boomer's cannonballs streak burning streamers across the glade, and spouts of water leap from the stream to cool them as they ricochet from the rocks. The last thing we want is the glade. In the glade is a fire. Spread out, yells Draven, running to retrieve his axe from the silverbark's trunk. The Noxians are quick to obey. Say what you want about the Noxians, and I've heard plenty of humans passing through my glade who have a lot to say about Noxians. They're disciplined. Mare runs to her horse and draws a slender rapier from a saddled scabbard. He grins at Draven and says, "No chance of an ambush, eh?" Draven shrugs, and his aura gives no sense of any alarm or care at being proven wrong. All I sense is glee at the chance to spill blood. Yes, I definitely dislike him more than Tamara. The Noxian warriors spread through the glade, moving forward in pairs as archers loose steady volleys of arrows to keep the two Yordles from moving. I know nothing of war, but even I can see the deadly tactics of the Noxians. We'll see Lulu and Tristana dead. I'm all for fun and games, but I don't want anyone killed. Magic surges through the ground in a powerful wave. I weave loops of grass that tangle the feet of the Noxian soldier. A great brute of a man with a double-bladed axe. He goes down hard, slicing open his arm as he falls flat on his face. His companion trips over him, dropping her sword, and the man cries out in pain as it stabs a handspun into his buttock. An amberwood tree twists its trunk and whips its willowy branches around like a catapult. It smacks a crouching archer in the face, and he topples backwards. The arrow he was poised to loose goes straight up in the air. Careful gust of wind, and it plunges down between his legs, tearing his breeches open at the crotch. He yelps in alarm and scrambles back on his haunches. Tristana fires again, and Pix jumps onto her head, punching the air and shouting, squeaking insults with every shot. Flowers fall from the air above the tiny fairy, and I see more than one arrow deflected around the Yordle gunner by their shimmering petals. "Can you see the doodad?" shouts Tristana over the cannon's noise. Lulu spins her staff around and springs onto its shepherd's crook handle. She shades her eyes with one hand and peers through the fading illumination. An arrow slashes towards her. The coiled point of her hat smacks it from the air. Nope. But then I don't know what it looks like now. What do you mean you don't know what it looks like now? Lulu spins in a spiral down her staff, and daisies spring up around her as she lands. The doodad's a bit flighty, you see. Every time I put it down, it likes to try out a different shape. Donna groans as Lulu sends a blazing shaft of sparkling light through the trees. A pair of Noxians are hurled through the air. They land in the stream, and I immediately mob them with a knot of frogs. The tongues of bucket frogs are coated with slime that will give them waking dream and ought to send them to the moon and back. So it could be like anything, asked Tristana. Pretty much, agrees Lulu. Just look for it out of the corner of your eye. It only changes if it thinks you're looking right at it. Never thought I'd say this, but I wish Heimer was here right now, says Tristana. Could really use his hex goggles. Don't be silly, says Lulu. That'd take all the fun out of this. Tristana spins on her heel to fire at a Noxian leaping towards her. Her cannonball punches him square in the chest, and he flies back into a thorny bush that suddenly gets a lot more thorny. Fun? She says. And she grins. You know what? You're right. Let's have some fun with these numpties. Grab on. Lulu laughs and throws her arms around Tristana's neck as if she's about to give her a big sloppy kiss. Tristana fires again, and this time her cannon is aimed at the ground. The two Yordles erupt from behind a flowery, arrow-studded log and arc over the heads of the advancing soldiers. The Noxians watch in open-mouthed surprise as the two Yordles spin over their heads, giggling musically as they go. Who knows what the Noxians are seeing? Something strange, no doubt. The Yordles' glamour is an inconsistent thing, and even they don't know how others see them most of the time. Gleaming bolts corkscrew from Lulu's staff, and everywhere they hit, Noxians are thrown from their feet in a spray of petals and sparks that burn like drops of venom. Two Yordles land on the run, and while Tristana spins around, firing at any Noxians who rear their heads, Lulu scrambles around, on all fours in search of her doodad. Here, doodad, she whispers to the grass. Pretty please, with sprinkles on top. I'll let you take us somewhere you want to go next. The doodad, or whatever it's really called, doesn't respond, but I sense it rolling away from, well, not really rolling as such, more making itself be where she isn't. It's a thing of old and powerful magic, but not without a childish sense of whim. Like it thinks this is a fun game. Perhaps it is, as Lulu is laughing with delight, spinning around and bounding through the glade like a weasel chasing its own tail as she chases her doodad. It turns into a large snail as Lulu gets close to it. And when she takes her hand away, sticky, it turns into a puff of light, or reappearing behind Lulu, the stick man, tottering away on mismatched legs. Tristana's keeping the Noxians' heads down with a barrage of fire. I hear Draven finally wrench his axe from the silver arc, its edge all gummy with sap. He turns and moves from cover to cover, stalking Tristana like a cat, all taut limbs and steely focus. He draws his arm back, ready to throw his other axe. A squadron of buzzing wasps swoops in and swarms him as a battalion of angry squirrels drops from the trees. His axe flies wide on the mark, thudding back to earth where the Noxian horses used to be. Now there's only a mess of hoofprints and a few discarded saddles. Draven spins around in a frenzy, pulling the scratching, biting squirrels from his arms and neck. Squirrels are the thugs of the forest. Rabbits might be stoic, but squirrels will bite your ear off as soon as your back's turned. Lulu's not even looked up. She's still running in circles and giggling like a child as she shoots puffs of light from her staff. With an explosive burst of speed, Tamara breaks from cover and runs straight for Lulu. I use my magic to throw distractions in her path. Frantic moles dig up holes before her, but she weaves between their hasty traps. The thorny stems of a hook brush whip at her as she skids under them. She looks around, starting to understand she has another enemy here, one she can't see or fight. Gotcha, cries Lulu, finally grabbing hold of her doodad. Now it looks like a knotted bunch of twigs held together by loops of grass and spider webs. Tamara dives over a coiling root I rip up from the earth and rolls to her feet. The last sparkles of Lulu's starburst gleam on the rapier as Tamara pulls it back to strike. And then Tristana's there. She hefts Boomer as if her cannon suddenly gotten heavier, a lot heavier. That's my friend, Buster, she says, and pulls the trigger. The booming thunder of the cannon is deafening, and birds as far away as 2 rivers west take to the sky at the noise. A blazing tongue of fire erupts from the muzzle as a giant cannonball blasts out. The force of the recoil spins Tristana around, but that's nothing compared to what it does to Tamara. She flies backwards like she's been punched by an angry stone golem. She vanishes into the trees. I don't think she'll be getting up anytime soon. Then, Tristana is hauled from her feet by the scruff of her neck. Boomer drops to the earth and Draven holds her up to his face with a bemused grin on his scratched and bleeding face. Now what in the name of the wolf are you? Put me down, you big oaf, yells Tristana. She kicks and swings her fists at him, but not even her pluck can overcome the length of his limbs. Draven cocks his head to one side, clearly wondering what he's got his hands on. Hey, why don't you pick on someone your own size? Yells Lulu, aiming her staff towards Draven. Swirling fireworks ripple up and down its length, but Draven doesn't look impressed. Do your worst, shorty, he says. You ain't got nothing can hurt Draven. The fireworks shoot out in Lulu's staff in a storm of light and miss. Draven laughs, spinning his axe up. Then a tall shadow falls over him, and he slowly turns around. That's when he realizes Lulu didn't miss at all. The rabbit with the half-chewed ear looms over Draven, twice his height at least. It munches slowly on a carrot that's as long as Draven's arm. He drops Tristana as the giant rabbit taps 2 stubbly fingers of its paws to its eyes, then points them at Draven with a stern look. Draven is a warrior and has fought his share of monsters, but this is too much even for him. He turns and sprints for the trees, pausing only to scoop up his other axe as he goes. The rest of the Noxians have already fled, or are backing away slowly into the undergrowth at the sight of the giant rabbit. Something tells me they will find a different route for their master's army. Tristana turns to look at the rabbit with a half-chewed ear. Thanks, she says, but the rabbit doesn't reply. Like I said, stoic. It turns and makes its way back to its burrow in a series of thudding hops. By the time it reaches the entrance, it's more or less returned to its normal size. It squeezes into the burrow with a final waggle of its tail and a puff of earth. Tristana slings Boomer over her shoulder. Do you have your doodad? Lulu holds it up triumphantly. My very naughty doodad. Shouldn't it run off like that? Tristana shakes her head, and marches back to the tree they fell out of. Lulu skips after her as Pix buzzes overhead, riding a pair of wasps with a tiny sequel of delight. Lulu catches up with Tristana and waves her doodad at the tree in what might be a predetermined pattern. Or it might just be her hoping for the best. Whatever it is, it works, and the leafy arbor appears in the silverbark's trunk. Sunrise over the land of the Yordles spills into the moonlit glade. I feel its ancient magic, and I send a pulse of my own through the air, wishing my two friends interesting travels. Lulu pauses and looks over her shoulder. Thank you, she says, and I feel the boundless joy in her heart. The beauty of my glade is made all the richer for it. Come on, we should get going, says Tristana. Why are you in such a hurry? We should be gone before the Noxians return. I don't think they'll be coming back, says Lulu with a wide grin. The light of the portal swells outwards in a glowing, rippling spiral to envelop the Yordles. Their forms blur, and their voices grow faint as they are drawn away once more. But I hear Tristana's last words, and cold wind pass through the glade in a ripple of unease. They're Noxians, she says. They always come back. My Yordle Nora snores into the pages of my friend book. My tail twitches as dozens of moon moths sail in through the open window like floating lanterns, and I leap joyfully into the air, not caring if I catch one. I bounce higher and higher, batting at the moon moths as they drift all around me. One of them bends and turns inside itself, lashing about until it twists into the shape of a mackerel. Around me, the other moon moths spin in midair, all transforming into floating fish. Delicious, until the whole world turns upside down. Books cascade up from the shelves, landing on the ceiling with a dozen thuds. My Nora floats upwards, still asleep. The fish flounder in every direction as we all fall up, up, up. I wake up, blinking sleepily in a wooden box as moonlight shines through the slats. How in a mouse's house did I get here? Oh yes. That tasty stink of fish fills my nose, and I remember prowling the streets of Bilgewater, finding a crate of dried fish, and eating my fill before falling asleep, falling into a deep, belly-full sleep. Before I can get comfy again, my stomach lurches, and I'm knocked into my side. Dozens of dried fish fall on top of me. It's like my dream, and my stomach purrs. Book flutters in the corner as it tries to edge away from the falling fish. It's always hinting that food is bad for its pages. I think dried up trees would be much improved with the smell of fish, but Book knows much more about dried up trees than I do. I don't argue. I peek through the cracks between the slats. The floor beneath us creaks and shifts while, in the distance, moonlight flickers on the surface of the ocean. Book, why? I cry. Naps never lead to bad things. Book opens and closes in exasperation. Don't do water, and neither does Book. I start to panic. Book rustles, reminding me not to worry, but it's too late. I scratch and scramble at the wood in desperation, and I shred some of the dried fish by accident. This ocean is making me destroy my yummiest snack. The worst type of water. I paw at Book's cover, opening it to the frost-tinged portal that will take us far away from this watery nightmare. We have to escape somewhere, anywhere, even somewhere cold. about to jump into Book's portal when I hear a scream that sounds like tinkling bells and the brightest rainbows. A scream that makes my fur stand on end. A Yordle scream. Peek through the slats in the crate and watch as two human sailors drag a blue-furred Yordle to the edge of the bustling ship's deck. One of them has black chin whiskers and the other is chubby, and both are smirking. They step over roped stacks of harpoons, fishing poles, spears, and coils of thick fishing wire. Must be deep-sea monster hunters. This little one is gonna fetch a surprise gulperfish, eh? The first sailor says. I hear the biggest fish love Yordle meat, says the chubbier sailor. Never tried it before myself. Yordles around Bilgewater. The blue-furred Yordle squeals and struggles against them. I'm not bait, he exclaims, squeaking with each word. I beg you, please release me. The sailors don't budge. The whole ship tilts as a particularly large bump shakes my crate. Ah, that'll be the fish now. Time to fill our boat with gulperfish, says the first sailor, grinning. I don't like his grin. An enormous fin circles our boat, making lion-sized waves that bash the side of our ship. I feel Book tugging at me. I know it wants us to escape through a portal, to get away from the bad water right now before anyone sees us. But I hear the Yordle cry out. My paw through the slats in the crate and open the crate's latch. I won't leave a Yordle alone to die, not after losing my Nora. Sailors watch the fin thrash around in the water. They don't notice me as I leap from my crate like the quietest tiger and stalk them from behind. The poor Yordle is tied to a long fishing pole which the sailors are dangling over the ocean. The water beneath him is bubbling, frothing. Why does water always move in the worst way? I jump over the pile of harpoon, and Book follows, flying next to me and nervously flapping its pages as it hovers in the air. They see us. Is that a purple raccoon with a flying book? One of the sailors asks. I think it's a baby bear with a journal, says another. No, you idiots, it's just a cat, says a third. Get it? The sailors rush at me, but I dart swiftly between their feet. I unfurl a coil of magic that twists and tangles around their legs. They trip and topple like cups on a table. I perch on the ship's railing next to the fishing pole, unsure what to do next. The waves swirl below us, and my hunting instincts kick in. Something's gonna pounce. Untie me, shouts the Yordle as he clings to the fishing rod. I am not a piece of bait. This is quite strange and embarrassing. Luckily for him, I am not afraid of fish, even if I don't like water. I bound onto the fishing pole in the midst of a cat's leap. Sometimes time slows, with my paws splayed out like pancakes and wind rushing through my fur over the terrible water. I am determined to save this Yordle with everything I've got. Besides, mid-leap, there's no going back. Don't worry, small blue Yordle, I shout. I got you. The Yordle's fate and mine intertwine as I land on its shoulder, with Book right behind me. The fishing pole wobbles under our weight. The biggest fish I've ever seen, a third the size of the boat, bursts from the sea with its mouth gaping open, hundreds of teeth glistening in the moonlight. Its jaws open so wide it could swallow a pair of cows without even chewing them up. Even in the dark, with my shiny light, I can see its skin is made of pointed, razor-sharp scales of silver and violet. A giant gulperfish swallows us whole. The yordle, Book, me, and even a bit of the fishing pole with room to spare. We jostle against the roof of the fish's mouth as it falls back into the water. It's pitch black and smells like old seafood. Before it can gulp us down, though, I balloon up a magical shield that bubbles around us, lodging us in the fish's leathery gullet. I blink on my shiny light again, illuminating some seriously rotten teeth that explain the awful smell. The yordle squeals at the sight. The fish lashes about, and the three of us are thrown in every direction, protected by the impermeable bubble. What a strange way to make new friends. I try to open Book so the three of us can escape, but the gulperfish leaps into the air once more, and we are tossed into a heap inside the bubble. We fall with a thud. The fish must have landed on the ship's deck. I hear the sailors shouting as the enormous gulper thrashes back and forth, slapping them with its tail. I hear a splash, and another, and another. The humans must have been knocked into the water. Still stuck in the throat of the gulperfish, I flip Book open to a portal that shimmers with a dusky green of Bandle City, the green of home. I grab the small yordle's shirt with my teeth and dive into the page. The portal widens and we spin into the spirit realm, dizzy and whirling into a jumble of colors. We emerge, coughing, on the banks of a shallow creek. My lungs fill with the sweet air of Bandle City, thick and lush as in my dream. Sapphire blue crickets chirp in the twilight as the brook babbles gently, full of fish. Normal-sized fish. Book flaps its pages to dry off. The blue-furred yordle stands up, dripping and shaking. What was that? How did we escape? He asked. Wasn't the nearest Bilgewater portal back on the docks? Lucky for us, Book carries our portals around wherever we go. I say. Book twirls, showing off its dried up tree pages, each inscribed with a magical gateway outlined in ink and paint. Well, thank you for saving me, both of you, says the yordle. He looks at Book curiously. Is this where you're from too? Yes, but we don't live here anymore. I say. I look at Book, sadly, thinking of Master. Book flutters. I know it thinks it's time to move. You know how to get home from here? I ask the yordle. Yes, just up the hill past the bowl. I know this meadow well. I do hope you find your yordle, he says, before wandering off. I stay for a moment, watching the gloaming turns to daybreak. I catch a glimpse of a moon moth hovering on the horizon. I long to pounce on it, but I remember that Nora is still lost somewhere, perhaps waiting for us to pat Book as gently as I can with my paw. I know it misses her too. Then I open it to a new page. Dive in. I hope everyone's having a relaxing time. And anyone who has fallen asleep, I hope you are sleeping well. Very magical dream. Zon and Piltover sing to one another. The refrains are full of old wounds and injustice and pain. I think it's just me that can hear it, but we all feel it. At the back of everyday life, pushing both Zonites and Piltovans into Trident discord. I know they can sing together. I've heard it. Raps of it. Once in a while, little chords that make my heart ache with possibility. And once, a beautiful, crushing tidal wave of harmony in it. It was the same moment I heard my Hextech crystal for the first time. The voice sang 1,000 hymns at once. Each of them was a pebble in an avalanche, impossible to understand beyond scattered. The voice could hear me, and I wanted so badly to keep pushing, listening. But it fell back to a fuzzy hum the instant Zahn and Piltover ended their symphony. Here in the entresol, where I hide in the dark behind the stage, that duet should ring. The top of Zahn, the bottom of Piltover, the gray link smearing grime across hammered Piltovan bronze. The night kit lamps scatter the colors of Piltoven's glass across Zahnite cobbled carefully engineered with Piltovan tools. And folk from both cities make their way, bringing that rapturous soul song only I can hear. Zahnites pour in from below, 1,000 different instruments drummed with tuneless enthusiasm. Kids taunt, while older folks usher them up, searching for a moment's peace. Piltovans march down in trumpeting, inquisitive and bright and proud. They come by descender or by the stairway and ramp connecting to the over promenade. The entresol's posh Piltovan twin. They laugh and joke together, gesture appreciative at the quaintness of our makeshift open-air theater. Exciting at first. I'm so happy they're all here. I close my eyes and tune to my crystal, pleading for it to speak again. But the crystal emits the same warbling, distant hum, a presence there and not there. Even that fades to a murmur as the songs clash, turning duet into duel. Piltovan laughter lapses into hearing discomfort. Zahnite shouts quiet into indignant scowl. It almost as if they'd planned it. The crowd organized into two perfect separate halves. This is what it means to live in Zahn and in Piltover. The Entresol's a place to come together, sure, but not to connect, only because the cities have to touch somewhere. I watch as one Piltovan trips, nearly crossing that perfect gap between them, only for two of his fellows to catch him and bring him protectively back into the fold. They're all here for the same reason. Why can't they put their guards down for like one moment and just be with each other? Why do I always think it'll change? I am just one person, just Seraphine, who could barely even leave her house for how many years? How am I supposed to make them see that it could be different? Why do I think I can? Did I ever think I could? The lights come on and the shock makes me realize I've been holding my breath. I feel the chill on my forearms, the mic in my shivering grip. I look at the crowd. There are a few appreciative whoops, but mostly they're focused on keeping separate from the other side. I take a breath. A pure, familiar note of soul music rings out to me from the Piltovan audience. I look over and see Shala's tired smile, beaming up at me from a crowd that melts for a moment into the background as I'm swept up in her song. During visits to my parents' shop, Shala would tell me about her thesis, reading dramatically from it like an eager parent would a book. She'd tell me what had changed since the last time it had been rejected by the college. Seventh time's the charm, was what she said the last time we talked. But even back then, I could hear the doubt edging into her optimism. 6 rejections, and she was still facing forward. But it was through a cloud of doubt. Should she maybe be doing something else with her life? Her self-doubt nestles into mine, and the next breath comes a little easier. Another song joins the melody, this time from the Zolnite crowd. I look over and see Roland, an absolute artist, a silversmith. I'd first been drawn to his little workshop by the sound of it. He'd piled crates and supplies all on one side of the shop to make room for a handful of kids who were using the corner for what looked like band practice. He said that the ruckus made it easier to focus, that he needed the sound more than the space, that he might need to get used to such a small room his next design didn't sell. Roland's song twists with Shala's in my head. One drums the brass and gravel, one wind and horns and hushed voice. They couldn't sound more different, but something just made it work somehow. One song full of self-doubt, and the other fear for the future. But there's something else. A sturdy, rolling, endless beat that keeps their songs from spinning out into singular, dying notes. It's the same beat in both songs. Shala loves her work, and Roland his. Their determination finds mine, snatches it from a fall into darkness. The next breath is sweet. Don't need to solve everything. Not here for that. Neither are they, and that's okay. Listen for the crystal, and its steady rhythm builds and rumbles, indistinct, but there. I want to reach out, but I only know one way how. I close my eyes, and I let myself be filled with Shala's song and with Roland's. I imagine their struggles. Shala chewing on a pen until her eyes widen in epiphany, and she writes the perfect conclusion to her thesis. Roland, one eye closed tight as he gently shapes the last detailing into an ornate silver frame, then stands back with a grin and a sigh when he knows it's perfect. Tiny explosions crawl across my shoulders, up my spine, into my head, and music lights my whole body on fire. I sing. Maybe our voices are quiet alone, maybe mine's quiet alone, but I'm not. We're not. I don't hold anything back, because I know they don't either. The panic, the fear, the self-doubt, I pour it all into the song, heaps of it, so much that I want to cry. Our songs are droplets of rainwater on a window pane. Shala swirls itself into mine, and we become a little stream. We find Roland, happy to be caught up in our motion. Together, we find the crowd, each droplet gathering another and another and another, until we're a flood of song and feeling. That flood grows louder and louder as the crowd, silent, but for the swell of their souls, opens to the music. Once, I would have gotten lost in this storm of sound. but I have Roland and Shala and myself, and we feel what they feel. They know what drives us, what drives me. I'm so grateful. I'll make sure they know that too. I push that feeling into a single note, and in that moment, I know the music we're making could pierce the heavens. The song ends, and my eyes open to the crowd. A single entity greets me, precious and cheering and surging together towards the stage. Not a cobble in sight. My muses have found one another in the center of the crowd, and I can't tell anyone. I can't tell anymore which side is which. The entressol's a beautiful place. We've got the best seat in the house, a hidden little corner table where a lucky patron can sit in secret silence, sip a hot cup of tea, and watch the world pass by. My show ended a few bells ago, but the crowd stuck around, talking and laughing together. Local business folk took quick advantage, opening up shop, carrying out tables, chairs. My stage, powered down and pushed off to the side, has become a makeshift playground where Piltovan and Zolnite kids are challenging one another to various antics. I can feel the charge in the air, excitement and wonder, and that airy feeling you get on days you never want to end. Sit back, both hands around my steaming mug, close my eyes, and smile. They all make such wondrous music. Piltovan and Zon continue their duet, if only for a little while. A familiar voice rumbles through me, faint, but urgent. My soul soars even as my heart starts to pound. I don't know what I'm here, whether we'll understand each other this time, how long we have. I only know that it needs to be heard. Its song lifts in an orchestral swell, and I brace for the avalanche. It has so much to sing and just to hear. But I won't ever stop trying to listen. Thank you to everyone who showed up today, who spoke in chat, who followed, who subscribed. Thank you for anyone who is still here currently listening. I hope you all have a wonderful night and a beautiful tomorrow. Sweet dreams, everyone. Good night.